We've engineered our life. I know what I want to have as a dad, and the business will fit in with what I want to do in my life. I learned so much from it, and it really did give me the impetus I needed to launch. Pain is going to happen, but suffering is optional. I'd redefined failure. The idea of trying something and it not working isn't the end of the road, it's just a lesson.
Welcome to SaaS Dads, where we scale SaaS without sacrificing family. All right, awesome. Here we are, back for another SaaS Dads with Leon. You just told me how to pronounce this correctly, Bubanacek. Did I get it right? Yay, nailed it. Leon Bubanacek. I've known you for ages, mate. Anyway, I'll just call you Leon. So I know Leon, and I see your surname. I know who you are, and then I
That'll
go,
work.
I don't think I've never used your surname ever. Mate, how are you? Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Gary. Excited.
No worries, mate. So we're gonna have. I'm really interested for our chat because we talked before in Dallas about you saw SaaS Dads and you're like, I'd love to come on and talk about some of my experiences and how they've helped me shape business from parenting and stuff like that. So I'm really interested to hear all those things from you, mate. But for those that don't know you as well, let's just dive in just quickly about who you are, like what is your business and how long has that been going, mate?
Yeah, so I'm a business systems and process coach. So I coach people on how to improve their business by installing systems, not just tech, but improving and installing systems in their business. I've been doing that professionally. I've been doing it for about 23 years, but for the first 17 years, I did it in my own large multinational company that grew to almost $100 million a year, but exited that in 2020, as luck would have it, when COVID arrived, and have started focusing on helping other service providers, coaches, consultants, helping them actually learn from some of my experience, some of my lessons in how to install those systems into their business.
Very nice, mate. And you are a platinum SaaSpreneur, is that right?
No, I'm only a gold Sespreneur,
Only
but
gold? Oh, you're nearly
now,
at platinum though, aren't you?
yes, I was seven short.
Yeah,
So
is that what you
that
told
won't
me?
happen this year.
I was trying to remember if you told me that in Dallas this year or if it had been the year previous, where you said like
No, I
you
was
came
very
up just a
short.
few short of putting it in. So you're only
Yeah,
you're officially gold, but technically platinum. Would that
I'm
be
over it now. Yeah, absolutely.
very good, mate? So platinum SaaSpreneur. And so 23 years you've been on this journey through these other businesses. And so you've got a 17-year-old girl and a 13-year-old boy.
Yeah, yeah. So 17-year-old daughter, which brings with it all the joys of a teenager becoming a woman. And yeah, my 13-year-old son, who is just started second year of high school and is becoming, truly becoming a teenager. So yeah, fun times.
Yeah, how's those transitioning through the teenage years? Is it true
Yeah.
what they say that girls are much easier early on and then become much more difficult later? Boys are easier early and then, sorry, boys are more difficult earlier and then they become more difficult later. Is that true?
Yes. So far, I'd say that's pretty close. They have their moments, both of them, but yeah, they can be challenging. And dealing with a 17-year-old daughter, love her to death, but dealing with friendships in a social media world and driving.
Oh,
She got
yeah.
her license recently, and finishing school and planning university and all these other things can, yeah, it's challenging, but all in a good way.
Are they in that space where they know everything and you know nothing, Dad? You don't
Oh,
understand.
absolutely. Absolutely. Of course. What do I know?
I get that now. I've got an 8-year-old and I get that now. Like, mate, you got to understand something here. Hang on, buddy. What's your normal routine like? So as a SaaS dad, you're running a good sized business now, like 500 plus accounts, so 500 plus
Yeah.
customers. That's obviously going to take up a lot of time. I say, actually, no, I say it takes a lot of time because I don't know, but you'll explain this to us. But that's a lot to do. And you've got obviously a lot of clients there to juggle. And you have built systems or processes yourself to
Mhm.
actually manage that with clients. And
Yeah.
how do you manage your routine to have a business of that size? Because there's a lot of people that they're striving to get to even to get to gold, right? 100. That's a big leap for some people to get to, right? So
Mhm.
you're well past that. And I know ourselves, like we're well over 600 agencies using our platform, right? But the leap to get to the first 100 is so much hard work.
Yeah.
What do you do and put in place so that you've managed to build and grow to that size and manage your family as well?
Yeah, I think the probably my biggest takeaway from my experience has been starting with the end in mind, like understanding what kind of life I want to lead. My children are very musically talented. My son is a very good sports person, and we want to travel around the world and go to concerts as and when they happen. And you'll see that all over my socials. We're always at some other concert, which is slowly making me go broke. But yeah, I've engineered our life. I know what I want to have as a dad and as a husband and in our life.
Mm.
And I've engineered the business to allow for that, but also to fit within that. And I think so many of us do it the other way around. Like the work, our business, our employment, whatever it might be, controls what we can do and when.
Yeah.
And I've said for a very long time, just from previous experience and previous businesses that I've owned, that I just don't want that. The business will fit in with what I want to do in my life. And what I've found that does is that attracts people that like what I do in life. And because of that, they want to come along on the journey and they understand the boundaries that I put around things. They come on the
Yeah.
journey with me, and that makes it a hell of a lot more easier to explain why for the next 2 weeks we're overseas doing something. But the systems are in place, the support's there. I've got a very small but very experienced team that take care of them every day, allowing me to be a bit more creative and explore business opportunities and grow that from a high level, pardon the pun. So that's, yeah, but thinking about the end is, and planning that of what you want. I know so many really successful people that build this amazing business that just becomes a prison. They've built it into something they're absolutely stuck in. I've never wanted that. I've been very aware of that and tried to not go down that route.
Yeah, that is such a good important point because me and my wife, and I think this is an important thing if you've got shared vision with your partner as well.
Yeah, of
Me and my wife have always had the end goal in mind. We're never quite sure how we were going to get there exactly, right?
course.
So we're going to do something. And that always helps when you've got the end goal in mind, when you know that you're both striving for the same thing, like for
Yeah.
family peace, essentially, because there's tough times, right? I've
Yeah.
been with my wife for 25 years, I think, or we've been together for 25,
Yep.
married for 13 or something like that, whatever it is.
Okay.
She'll tell me. But it definitely helps when you've got that end goal in mind that you can always kind of
Yeah.
pull back to that and go, oh, today's tough, or you have problems, you have arguments in your family and wife and stuff like that. You go, yeah, but the end goal is we're trying to get to this. So that's always really important, I think. But you mentioned earlier you had the business you grew to 100 million in revenue. Was
Yeah,
that
just
the?
short of 100 million in revenue. Yeah, so it was actually a paintball business. I had two business partners, and we grew a paintball business all around the world, owned and
Hmm.
operated. We had our own paintball plants, our own paintball manufacturing, paintball gun manufacturers, uniform manufacturers, and we had 57 of those all around the world, and that was fantastic. I like paintball as much as the next person does, but I was more fascinated with the business, like creating a system that we would then go to a new country and just stamp that system around the country, opening up new venues, opening up new adventure centers all throughout those countries. And that's what that, along with my previous military experience, really embedded this concept of systems and how they
Hmm.
can be reliable and repeatable. And that's really important in business, particularly if you want to grow. You need something that can be easily repeated and happens all the time when you ask it to. And that's probably my slant and my attraction towards systems, is because that facilitates that happening.
Okay. I had no idea you were in the military, mate. What did you do in the military?
Yeah, I was in the Air Force. I was an explosive ordnance engineer. Worked with bombs, bullets, and bullshit. If I can say that word.
You could say that,
But
mate.
yeah, it was, yes, I worked on the F-18 Hornet at Williamtown down here in Newcastle, and then went into explosive ordnance demolition and teaching people how to use explosive ordnance, whether it be weapons or weapon systems on aircraft, and got into a kind of a teaching role and was teaching that around the country before I took a break from that and went overseas with my wife to do a working holiday in the UK. And over there fell in with this paintball business, and they were small and were starting out and were doing well, and we thought, how do we get involved with this? So ended up leaving the military and getting involved with that business, and we grew it from what they were to the largest paintball company in the world in this over the space of about 17 years.
Amazing. And I can imagine going, if you're dealing with bombs and bullets and BS, as you mentioned, right?
Yeah,
That's got to be fairly systematic, as in you've got to do A, B, and C in the right order. Otherwise, the consequences can be quite dire.
absolutely. And I think that was probably the first where I first got that. Being a 19-year-old kid who
Hmm.
was working on $80 million aircraft, and you make a mistake, and the consequences can be quite serious, particularly for the pilot and the $80 million aircraft and whatever happens off the back of that. So there was, at a very early age, there were real systems in place that you followed. There were checklists that had to be followed. And as long as you did that, it didn't matter who was doing the work. If you followed the system, the aircraft would fly, the pilot would come home safely, and there'd be no disasters happening that day. And that was probably the start of what really bashed into my mind this idea of systems. And as you mentioned, when you're working with explosives, and we used to do explosive ordnance demolition, which is where kind of explosives that had time expired, much like a carton of milk, after a certain amount of time, you shouldn't use them anymore. We would
Mm.
go and dispose of those. And it's the same thing. Very safe, no real danger as long as you follow the system. And it's when you don't follow the system that things start to go astray. So from a very early age, yeah, I did 12 and a half years in the military, and that kind of really instilled the systems thinking into my mind before I became very entrepreneurial.
Yeah, I imagine you'd have to be because, like you say,
Yeah,
okay, which way does this go? I've got to get this right. Is it the red wire or
absolutely.
the green wire, right? So I can see that transition almost from military to paintball because you've gone down to a slightly safer route of
A little bit
paintball
safer,
guns
yeah.
from a little bit safer, but still in the guns range. But what took you then from you exited the business, but what took you then into the high level community and
Yeah,
starting with the high
so
level business?
I was lucky in 2020. I discovered HighLevel at its infancy.
Mm,
And during the paintball business, I was involved in, because we were a very large paintball business and the largest by a long way. It's not typically a huge industry. We spent, must have been close to $750,000 on a bespoke CRM that was looking after the whole venture, if you like, overseas and throughout Australia, New Zealand, and Canada, and the UK, everywhere we were. And to see that platform, which was fantastic for about 18 months, and then developers left, new developers came in, wanted to do it differently. To see the functionality of that platform be amazing, but to see it fall apart very
mm,
quickly and not be sustainable, it was a really big, both financial and business lesson for me. And when I came across GHL, the idea of a platform that could do a lot of what we'd spent $750,000 creating 7 years, 8 years earlier, but could do it all for a $97 thing. It just was more curiosity and intrigue on how can that possibly be the case. And when I very quickly uncovered that it actually could do that and was growing very quickly, I started using it for my business, and more people were asking, how are you doing this? How does it work? And being a systems person, very happy to talk about that. And that's how it grew. And I've been not partnered, but tied to GHL ever since. And as they grow, more and more people come to me asking, how are you doing this? How are you running your business? And it's a really easy discussion to say, this is what GHL are doing and this is the power of it. Jump on.
so it's amazing for the people. If anyone's listening to this who's never built or developed anything,
Oh,
they don't understand that building something and making it work is almost the easy part. Keeping it running, keeping it fixed. I remember
yeah.
the first time when we ventured into the online space and we had to build a shopping cart. It's like back in the day before Shopify existed. We had to build a
Yeah.
PayPal shopping cart for something. And we built it. And then I don't know what it was, but it wasn't very long later, like a few months down the track, it all broke and fell apart. It's like, why does this happen? We've
Yeah.
built a
What
shopping cart.
now?
What now? What do we do? And that's the thing. We're going into this land of vibe coding now, where people are spinning up these things. And I see this now. It's just like, all right, but how are you going to manage that? How are you going to fix that? Because
Yeah.
that's
What
going to
happens when the
break, right?
protocol changes
Yeah,
and
that's amazing.
everything falls over?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you just vibe coded this thing. That's amazing. Let's see how long that works for, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm sure
Absolutely.
that's going to get better and better. There'll be people hating on me for this. Going, yeah, but I'll just tell Claude to
No, but it's
fix the
so
code.
true.
I'm
And
like,
I think
but
one of the things I've seen a lot of too is that a lot of people that I end up working with have had those scars from systems that they either couldn't afford or they spent a lot of money on and they ended up falling apart or not working for them as time went on. And one of the toughest things is getting them to realize that was of a time and place. Like that was back in the 2010s and the early 2000s. That's when that stuff was happening, and that time and technology's moved on. And a lot of
yeah.
people, a lot of big businesses particularly carry the scars of failed CRM migrations and all those kind of things in the past. So a lot of work goes into explaining to them that was of a time and place and things have changed now and it can actually be achievable, a lot more achievable than it was particularly 10 years ago.
That's why these SaaS models are so good because people will
Yeah.
pay. That's what you're paying for that service to keep it up and running, keep the lights on, basically. That stuff needs maintaining. Some people just still don't understand that.
Yeah.
But let's hop back a bit if we can. So
Mhm.
17-year-old and a 13-year-old,
Yep.
what age were they? So you're in the military for a while and then you went
Yep.
to the paintball business. I'm trying to do the mental math, but I can't go back that well. What age were your children when you were starting the paintball business, or were they around when you started that
They were
into that
around
venture?
probably halfway through the process.
Yeah.
So yeah, probably 6 or 7 years in, my daughter came around, and then the son followed 4 years later. But yeah, they missed the paintball times. That was very much travel the world. My wife and I working together well as a team, just traveling the world and pushing that particular venture. But it was the end of the paintball, middle to the end of the paintball business, and then the new coaching business, if you like, that the kids have been around for.
Okay. And what was that like for you? So you go from traveling the world and building this business and all this free time and time with your wife, and then kids come along, right? How was that
Yeah,
transition for you into fatherhood?
it makes as we all know, it changes your world. I've got an amazing wife, and we made an arrangement that she would focus on being the primary caregiver, allowing me to continue to grow the business and provide the kind of financial stability that we wanted, which was amazing. And she's done an amazing job, and a job that I couldn't possibly have done, but she's absolutely nailed that. And as a team, we just continued to work through that. I still traveled a lot because I tried to set up a business with the end in mind, as I said earlier. The idea of the family coming along when we were doing different launches or we were overseas, the family would come very often and would be there to support me emotionally as well as helping out in the business. But as time's gotten on, I think it seeded the love and the passion for travel and the ability to realize that you can still live a very fruitful life without having to be tied to the 9 to 5. I only get 4 weeks holidays a year. And I think
Yeah.
I'm happy that I've instilled that in my kids as well.
Okay. And when you started on your journey, you left the military to start in this paintball business, and
Yep.
now you've changed again. What was the initial reaction from your family? Leave a stable career in the military to go and start some crazy paintball adventure.
Yeah. Look, I think it was exciting. When we did the paintball thing, it was just my wife and I. We became very aware, and I think as my entrepreneurial skills started to grow, we became very aware that there were opportunities, and potentially working for someone else wasn't the way that I was wired, and that I had to look for things that I could benefit from myself and also suffer from the bad decisions that I made myself and have that same experience. So we kind of figured that out at an early age and before kids. And when the kids came along, I think there was a level of resilience. I've lost it all. I've had all the problems and the kicks in the guts that everyone else has had too. So you develop a level of resilience. And my wife was very confident that almost no matter what, that we'd be able to rebound. We'd be okay. And
Yeah.
that kept the excitement level high, but kind of takes the edge off the stress of going and starting something new.
What's some of the stresses that you've been through? You mentioned you've been through all the problems, the kicks in the guts, like we've all had them as entrepreneurs.
Oh,
Can you name something? What's one of the most troubling times that you've been through in your entrepreneurial journey that you've had to
yeah.
sit, pause, take a breath, and regroup from?
Yeah, there's been a few, whether it be the GFC, the financial crisis in 2008, whether it be the COVID, of course, when you run a paintball center where people turn up to play paintball and no one's allowed to leave their house, that can
It's
suffer. And as luck would
troubling.
have it, I was exiting the business there anyway. And that one of the biggest ones was like a bit of a falling out with my business partners over that business. And I lost a lot of money in not a failed sale, a poor result in the sale of that business. Didn't get the payout that I was intended to get. And that was quite identity shifting, if you like. Lost a lot of
Mm.
trust in humanity with that because these people were like my brothers. They weren't my brothers, but they were, but money and time and situation changes people. And I think now, as much as it was a huge financial downfall, looking back on it now, like I wish it ended differently, but I don't regret it happening because I learned so much from it. And it really did give me the impetus I needed to launch into helping. There was just something missing. And that was the idea of seeing amazing other businesses that were out there and not being able to contribute time to help them get through some of the tough times that I'd been through and learn from the lessons that I'd learnt by making the mistakes. And this all culminated between COVID and the breakdown of the partnership and being screwed over a large payout that was due and never got paid. That all culminated in me realizing that maybe this is the universe's way of saying, stop hanging around, there's more for you. And there has been. It's been amazing. So yeah, in all the darkness, there's always the opposite. There's a bit of light on the other side of that. And I've definitely appreciated that happening. Just wish it wasn't so destroying during the process.
It is hard. Like we've all had those, right? And we've had our stories and our battles and stuff in our businesses. And times I had something very similar with a business partner, and
Yeah.
ex in the business didn't get the payout. I can completely relate to that.
Yeah,
And now that I've been through those things, it does make it easier though moving forward. Because anytime something bad comes up now, I just go, all right, that's what's happening now. But these are the things that can happen in the future, right? This isn't the end of the story, right?
absolutely.
And it just makes it so much easier moving forward after you've licked your wounds and moved out of
Oh
those
yeah.
things. But at the time, they can be
Yeah,
very
it's not
soul
nice.
destroying. No, it's
Yeah,
not nice,
experience, I'd
but
say experience is a great educator, and they're not always good experiences, but the lessons, when you take the time to take a breath, take stock, and look back at the lessons, as painful as they were, you can't get them from a university degree. The lessons from the school of hard knocks, that's for sure.
they are. How do you manage that with kids? And this is one of the things that I try and I still struggle with. And I talk to all these SAS dads and other parents and that. It's like, how do you manage that with your children, right? Because well, not ideally, that's not the right word. I'm trying to think of the right word, but what we want to do as a parent is protect our kids from everything. You don't want them to get hurt. You don't want them to suffer. You don't want to see them cry. You want to give them everything so they're happy, right? But also, really, I know that's completely the wrong thing to do, right? And
Yeah.
I don't do that. But then there's that balance between giving them better than I had. As a child, I grew up and we didn't have a lot of money, grew up in a single parent family. My mum was basically busy working, latchkey kid, didn't live in a great area. You got secondhand clothes, all those kind of things, right?
Yeah.
I want to give my son so much more than that. But also, without him going through all that, I went through all that. So I appreciate the hell out of what I've got now, right? He
Yeah.
doesn't. He just doesn't get it. And it's a real balance between, okay, you need to learn some life lessons, but obviously I want you to have better. What's your approach to bringing your kids up and letting them learn their own lessons, but also trying to give them the best in life?
Yeah, look, I think this is not, we all go through this, Gary. I think
Mm.
most dads go through this exact same struggle. I've got my own story. I lost my mum to a medical episode. She died of an asthma attack in when I was 8 years old.
Oh,
So my
sorry, mate.
grandmother stepped in and became the kind of matriarch of the family and was amazing at doing that. We've all had the tough times and the different times, and would we change it for the world? As I said before, sometimes, yeah, it would be nice, but it is what creates who we are and the resilience that we have.
Mm.
I very much believe, and this I'm using this wording from a mentor and good friend of mine, Simon Bowen, this idea of not being a mentor and a sage, not being a hero. I don't want to be a hero to my kids. I don't want them have to come to me to get the answers. I very much want them to know that I'm a trusted advisor, that I'm here to guide them, but I very much want them to make their own mistakes because I truly believe they'll learn a lot more from making their mistakes. Now, of course, as a parent, we want to put some boundaries around that. We want to make sure they're not making life-altering mistakes, particularly at a younger age. And we don't get it right all the time either. I was very fortunate to do a lot of travel when I was younger, and we would fly business class. And my kids, for a long time, didn't understand why, when they did happen to get on a Jetstar flight, they didn't get a hot towel in service of their nice meal when they flew Jetstar, because we'd been fortunate enough to fly business on some of the world's nicest airlines. But I think it's just a balance of recognizing that there's if you make it too easy for them, they expect it and they become entitled. I also don't want them to go through the pains and the troubles that I had. Not that I thought it was a troubled time at the time, but it's nice to be able to give them more and try to give them the fruits of your labor. I really think it's just a balancing act, really making sure that they understand what they're getting, they recognize that there's been hard work done for that, and also recognizing that sometimes you don't get all those benefits and you don't get all those nice things. It's all about the work that you put into it. I saw a post from another guy that I really rate really highly, Ryan Dice. He's been at some of the
Yeah.
GHL events. He said he's made it very clear to his kids that when they turn 17, they're out. That's his life. That's not their life, and they've got to go and make their own lives. And I think that's an interesting approach. I like the concept behind that, and that is we want to make sure we empower our kids. I find it my mission, and I don't always succeed, but my mission is to make sure that my kids are ready for the big bad world. And making
Yeah.
life really easy for them all the time, I think, is doing them a disservice. I think it's good to let them experience some of the negative sides of the world so they can start to develop a bit of resilience around that before they step out there to take their own big steps in the world themselves. Of course, they'll always have mum and dad here to support them, of course. But I think it's nice to have a bit of a realistic approach to the world by the time they step out to carve their own way.
Are there any particular values you try to instill in your kids? We try to instill the value of gratitude into our son, right? And it's really difficult, right?
Yeah, of
You
course.
got to understand, mate. Be grateful for these things, right? But that's right. That's something we're really trying to instill into him and trying to show him the other side of the coin as well. I've taken him to places where people don't have much and just go, mate, this is the other side of the world, mate. You have to understand there's different
Yeah,
places and you're complaining about you're complaining because you don't have an iPad because we're not buying you one. There's people out there that haven't even got clean drinking water, mate. So
yeah.
wise up. What sort of values do you try and instill into your children?
Yeah, I think honesty is a cliche, such a cliched value, but such an important one. I think honesty
Mm,
is important. I remember saying, wasn't the best way of putting this, but I used to say the worst trait you can have is to be dishonest,
mm,
because then people can't take you on your word, and I think that would make life very difficult. So honesty, gratitude, absolutely. We've done lots of trips where we've taken toys and footballs over to Fiji and stopped in at schools and let the kids experience how something as simple as a suitcase full of colouring in books and NRL gear and a couple of footballs and a couple of jerseys can just kids feel like it's Christmas time. And sometimes our kids don't, they just expect that as part of everyday life. It's a new football season. We want the new jersey, let's get it. So I
yeah.
think experiencing it, and for you, Gary, when you said you're trying to teach it was an 8-year-old, did you say?
Yeah, he's eight. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a journey. Trying to sit them down biologically, their prefrontal cortex isn't ready for that kind of stuff. But I think if you start to seed it and you start to drop it in here and there, I think you're surprised. You get very surprised. There are comments that I've made that my daughter, my 17-year-old daughter, has been able to quote back that I made 10 years ago, and it's just something that stuck with her. So yeah, I think seeding it is really important, and making sure they get exposed to it and get to experience it as opposed to just be told about it. And these are things that we discussed earlier. These are things that cross the. I've learned so much about business from working with my children. That's exactly the same when you're working with my clients. Telling them what to do is one thing, but doing what I recommend they do and demonstrating and showing what I'm doing and them having the confidence that they could do that as well is a very different approach and a very much more effective approach too. So there's a real synergy there between the way you teach and show things to your kids. You can do the same thing with the big kids in business. We're all wired pretty similarly.
Yeah, similarly and differently. And like I say, with
Yeah.
kids, there's a time when exactly what you were saying there, like the frontal cortex isn't ready yet for this. And there's times when I'll have a conversation with him about something and you get the eye rolls or the whatevers, and I just kind of have to pull back a little bit. All right, look, he's eight, and just remember he is a kid. He
Yeah.
doesn't get the importance of this, right? So
But
we'll
still
just
have
come,
those conversations, Gary. Still
yeah,
have them
but
because
we'll come back
I
and do
there's
it
a
again.
story I tell a lot. My son and I, we do these adventure races, and it's just you've got to run 20 Ks through the bush. You've got to orienteer your way around. You've got to get a mountain bike and ride 15 Ks through the bush to hit checkpoints. And then you've got to kayak 2 or 3 Ks. You've got to do all that in one go as a team of two. And we race against two 20-year-old mates. And we at the time we were 12 and 48. And I remember when we trained for it, the constant, I can't do this. We're against two 20-year-olds, Dad. How are we going to do it? And just that, we've got the same eye rolls when you try and teach
Mm,
kids something. But that idea of doing it with them and explaining that no, you'd be surprised what you can do. Your mental restrictions are in your head, they're not physical. If you think you can do it, you're going to be able to pull it off. Doing that over and over again, I can see now the way my son approaches. He's a very good swimmer, the way he approaches swimming, mountain biking, all the different activities he does. He's got that in he quotes it back to me. It's just in my head. Why am I scared to do this jump, Dad? When I know I can do it, it's all in my head. How do I get out of my head? And when they start quoting that stuff back to you, that's not because I sat him down and gave him a 2 hour lecture. That's just through years of dropping those hints, or when we're out doing a run or out riding the mountain bikes and we're talking about this stuff, it just starts to sink in. And as they're starting to get a bit older, I'm really surprised and it's really humbling to hear some of those things, not all of them, but some of them starting to get quoted back. They remember the concept. And that, yeah, that brings me a lot of joy.
yeah, they remember those things, and also they don't like to let themselves down or let you down or feel like they let themselves down. There's a couple of things happened. We were in Mexico recently,
Yeah.
and we were doing this treetops climb thing, and there was
Yep.
a couple of zip lines on it, and the last zip line they wanted you to go upside down, so you'd hang and then you would put your feet up and you'd hang upside down and go upside down on the zip line. And my son wouldn't do it. I was like, "Oh, mate, you can do it, you can do it." And he's not doing it, and he didn't do it, but he just went on the zip line as normal. Whatever. And then after that, we went to swim at a sea note, which is basically a hole in the ground. For anyone who doesn't know, it's like a collapsed cave kind of thing, a hole in the ground with water in it. So it's like
Okay.
however deep, so it's 7 meters to the top, and then the water's like 40, 50 feet deep.
Yep.
And we were swimming, and there's a 7 meter jump to get in there that you could do, or there was steps down. We'd all walk down, we were sitting in there, and next thing I hear, Dad, look at me. I look up and he's on the 7 meter jump, and
Oh,
he came
geez.
running and just leapt off and jumped into the thing. And I was like, oh my days. And I spoke to him later. I was like, mate, did you do that because you felt like you didn't do your best on the slide? And he goes, yeah, I wanted to show you that I could prove that I could do it to myself, Dad.
Yeah.
And I was like, good on you, mate. Well done.
How good's that? Yeah,
Yeah,
my
but
son's the
like,
same with roller coasters. I don't want to go on that roller coaster. Don't want to go on that roller coaster. I'm nervous. He always does it on the last ride of the day because he just knows he'll beat himself up about not doing it. And his
yeah,
favorite thing, he'll say, "Are you proud of me, Dad? Is that good?" And my answer always is, and I learned this from someone, I don't remember who, but many years ago, was it's not about, are you proud of yourself? Are you proud of yourself that you did it? It doesn't matter. Don't go for my pride, go for your own. And I think that, yeah, that's really helped him. And they're all the same. Kids are the same. They want to impress. They want to impress their parents, of course. But that idea of, yeah, feeling like they let themselves down is a real thing. If you
yeah,
can encourage that and make sure that they're proud of what they've achieved, first and foremost, again, I think that sets them up really well for life moving forward.
yeah. My son, he's like talking about SAS dads and the balancing of life, right? It's Monday today. My son's off school sick today. He was up last night, had a bad throat, and he threw
Oh,
up at
no.
some point. He's having the day off today, basically. So he's at home. So I'm juggling between the meetings and the things, right? But then entertaining him and doing stuff with him
Yeah.
because he has no iPad, right? So if he's off,
Yep.
it's mate, there's some books. Enjoy yourself, right? I got to do some work. I'll go in and out. But we also did something today with him because he's been sponsored by a marketplace app provider who I won't name
Okay.
at the moment, but they've sponsored him to do some videos for them. They wanted
Oh,
to do
how
some little
cool.
promotional videos. And so we did a little script, and he's got these. It's in little sections, so he's got to do is a little section at a time, and then we're videoing them. So I was doing those with him through the day today, and he was starting to break down because he's only got to remember a couple of lines at a time. It's
Yep.
like one little section, and then we'll cut in the next one. But he was starting to lose his place as we've done. There's 10 of them to do, 10 little mini videos that will be cut into one.
Yep.
And he was getting to 6 or 7, and he was starting to lose it a little bit. The focus for him was a bit too much, and he was starting to go into that. The kids, they can kind of just go into, oh, I can do
Yeah.
this thing. And then he started to do that, and he went, come on, don't give up, you can
Oh,
do it.
that's awesome.
I was like, come on, mate, let's go, let's do it. So
So good.
just trying to get them to do stuff and coach them through those things I find it a challenge because for me, I got told this by someone years ago. They said, like, I'm more of a consultant than a coach, as in, here's the solution to your
Yeah.
problem. Do that. I'm not a great coach. I mean, so I struggle in that department with doing that with my son. It's like, I know I
Yeah.
always have to remember to pull back and just go, hey, and I do what you said many times there as well. Be like, do you think you've done your best? Are you happy with that result? And then see what it goes through. So I'm learning to be a better coach through having a child than before. Definitely consult before, being better at coaching now.
Yeah. And that's what it's all about, Gary. I think there's no manual for being a parent, for being a dad, and you just do your best and you test and adjust the whole way through. It's not working, try something different, tweak your approach. Yeah, being a systems person, I'd love the manual. I'd be the first person to subscribe to the manual on how to be a great parent and a great father. But in the absence of that, it's about, yeah, doing your very best, talking to other people, which I like your podcast. This idea of talking to other people going through similar things, sharing your experiences, and learning from both your own experiences and those of others to get the best result for you and your family. And I think that's what we're all striving to do.
Yeah. And you mentioned you started talking about earlier about how you've learned from lessons from your kids that you now deal with the adult kids, that you're
Yeah,
working with. And we're all adult kids at the end of the day. We're run by
so
these kind of kid
some more than
things
others,
inside.
but yeah,
Yeah, but that's all. Yeah, it's absolutely true, right? There's all these things that have shaped us, our beliefs and our feelings and our emotions and what happened to us run our internal clockwork. And if you're not conscious of that, then they can just run away with you, right? So a
yeah,
lot of adults are running on I don't know the right word here, but an unconscious framework. They don't
yeah.
realize why they do the things they do, right?
So
So when
true.
you're in a role like you are and you're dealing with business owners that are probably overwhelmed, they need the systems, they need the playbook, they need someone who can just go, hey, do this. If you do A, B, and C, you won't get your fingers blown off by this bomb, right? Or grow your business by X%. But there are people that don't want to do A, B, and C in that order for whatever reason. Like, I don't
Hmm.
feel like it. That's not me. So, what have you learned from dealing with kids and coaching multiple people now through these systems
Yeah.
in a way to deal with people to get them through that and make them see that it's either their idea or that they need to get this done for a reason?
Yeah, I think the my number one, and I touched on it a bit earlier, dear friend Simon Bowen talks about being the sage, not being the hero. And so many people come looking for the answer. They want me to save them. They want my business to save. They want someone to just do it and save them. And that's so short term. Like I'm very much by using boundaries, I become that trusted advisor that can guide them in the right direction, can ask the right question that gets them thinking about a particular topic and be that person they can refer to get the guidance they need and then make the decision themselves and move forward. And again, I put that as my number one thing that I've learned that's transferred around being having children to running a business, because it's exactly the same. You tell your children to not run in traffic and not drink alcohol and until they're able to and not do all these things, and all they're hearing is that all sounds like fun and I'm not allowed to do it, so I'm going to do it anyway. But if you can be that advisor, if you can answer their questions, if you can be a trusted advisor with little to no judgment as much as possible and give them information that they're seeking, they get to make their own decisions. And the only difference is some of the magnitude of those decisions may be a little different for a 13-year-old child versus someone running $1 million business. The magnitude may be different, but the concept's the same. So yeah, don't go in and save them. Your job's not to save them because you can't always be there and they become dependent on that. So be the trusted advisor. That's probably my number one. And I've got five others that I live off if we've got time, but that's probably the one that I really lean on the most.
Yeah. What's the other four, mate?
Yes, the other
We've
one
got
is
time.
presence is greater than productivity. So we all know, and it's well documented, that kids they don't just want lots of time with you, they want quality time with you. And that doesn't have to be lots, but it's great. It's a lot better to have quality time and focus, even if it is a short period of time, than it is to just have lots where you're not present. And it's
Mm.
the exact same in business. We know that with children, yet in business, the amount of people that I've met, and I was one of them many years ago, that wore the idea of running a business that I worked 90 hours a week was a badge of honor. I'm a hard worker because I work 90 hours a week. And there's a law of constraints that says that if you give someone 90 hours a week to do the work, they'll get it done. But if you gave them 30, they'd probably get it done as well. So that idea of productivity and presence being the presence is a lot better, is a lot greater than productivity. So I think that's something I've learned both with kids, of course, and we know that it's a very popular cliche, if you like, when it comes to parenting, but it's the same in business. And when you have time, the meetings, when you have valuable meetings with people, if you actually are present in that meeting and not checking phones and you're there to solve a solution or to solve a problem and move on, that's a lot better than just being in a 4 hour meeting that everyone was just dying to get out of. So there's some really valuable lessons in that. Communications need to match the audience. This is such an obvious one in business, but it seems to be something that you have to teach people. Whereas with kids, we know that we can't talk about complex issues or complex politics or anything like that with a 10-year-old child. So we talk to them in a way that they understand. Yet we speak to our clients. Often coaches and consultants speak to the complexity that they are experts in, but they speak to their clients that aren't at that level. And of course, it just goes over their head. I had a great story where we were talking about rolling out new funnels and workflows, and we're going to run that into an appointment booking session, which would then go into a triage and a strategy call. We went through this whole thing, and this one woman, she was brave to just say, "Can I just stop you there? What's a funnel?" And we just glossed over it because we weren't speaking to our target. We were talking amongst ourselves. We weren't talking to our target market who just don't use that terminology.
Yeah, it's a good
And
question if you don't know the answer.
absolutely. And so many people, sadly, don't ask that question. They'll just roll on and leave that session going, I have no idea what they were just talking about. So speaking to your audience, I think, is really important at their level. And that's not that they're below you, but they'll have a different understanding and a different comprehension of what you're saying. So making sure you're really clear on what you do is super valuable, both with children and with your audience. The fourth one was around systems. So we, apart from my other lessons in systems and the importance of those over my professional career, the idea of having routines and non-negotiables and things that happen repeatedly and reliably in your personal life and in your business life are super important. Children crave the idea of routine. And yes, you can break that routine from time to time, but the idea of having something they can lean on and they understand what's happening and what's going on in a day-to-day kind of environment is really important for their development. As important it is when you're running a coaching program or you're talking with a business and they know that you've got structures and frameworks that they can lean on when things get tough or when things change or when they're going through a new campaign. The ability to lean on a framework or a system and recognize that this is strong, they can lean on that while they go through a tough time is super important, as important as it is for the family structure as well.
If I can pause you on that one, what's
Yeah.
your day-to-day or weekly non-negotiables for Leon to get you through?
Personally or family, or what do you mean?
Both personally and family. What do you do for yourself so that you can you have to keep in a good frame of mind
Yep.
to deal with your clients and then come away from your clients and then be with your family, but then also non-negotiables with the family as well. What do you do to balance yourself for work and then balance yourself when you're with your family?
Yeah, I think a lot to do around stress management, overwhelm, things like that. So we have a both in the business and in the family, we have this kind of thing where we won't, if things are getting tough or we're getting aggressive or whatever it might be, if things are just getting a bit hot under the collar, that will just take time. Like we'll walk away, we'll go for a walk, I'll go down the lake and walk around the lake or take the dog for a walk or do something. Just that idea of letting the situation de-escalate is probably a standard thing we do here. I also think I mentioned earlier, it's very much we'll give each other advice on what we think is going to happen, but ultimately it's your decision to make. A great example of that is friends, arguments among friends. When you and I went to school, Gary, we could go home and whatever was happening at school would stop because we're at home. That
Yeah.
doesn't happen anymore with social media, even with the ban, all that stuff. The whatever was happening at school continues to happen at home, and there's no escape, which is really concerning. But the ability to not tell them what to write back or tell them how to handle it, but say how you would handle it, and ultimately you do what you think's best. But here's what I'd do. This is what I would do. So having a rule around take the advice and make the decision, but stand by that decision either way is another one of those kind of frameworks or pillars that we work off in the family.
Yeah, that's a very tough one. I'm not looking forward to that one when it happens. Like I say,
No,
we're keeping us off
it's
all that
hard,
stuff for a
and
while.
without going into that whole rabbit hole, but social media is great, and I think it's great that kids get exposed to it because they have the ability to understand how it works with the right guidance, to understand how it works, and then to be able to implement that for their personal and professional benefit. I think it's great, but at the same time, that ability to not switch off, not take that calming moment away from everything else and just reset becomes
Mm.
very different when all you've ever known is sit on your phone and stare at it. It can become, I think
It,
there's going to
it
be, yeah, some
it
game
is the real
shifts.
world. It's the real
It
world
is.
for them now. It's
Absolutely.
absolutely the real world. Rather than like you say, we would come home, you'd leave it at school, you'd go out and play with your mates in your street, and do
Yep.
whatever you were doing at home. All the school stuff is left behind, and you come back. Now that is the real world. That's where they go. They're in
Absolutely.
online gaming. They're online on Instagram making TikToks, YouTube Shorts, whatever it might be. That
Yeah,
is their real world now. And I think it's very hard to draw them out of that once they're into it. My
it is.
son,
And
he
you'll notice too, Gary, you'll get, and this is not to give advice, but you'll get to a point where, come on, Dad, I need it because I'm the only, I'm the
yeah,
freak that doesn't have it. And that's holding your line. We held for a very long time, but holding that line can be really hard because you know the better thing, but you also don't want them, particularly when it becomes that's the way that kids communicate now. I don't
yep,
agree with it, but the reality is that's the way they communicate. And if they don't have that access, then they don't have communication tool to speak to their friends. Like we would get on the phone and dial the rotary phone and call our friends to say we're doing something. If you don't have that, then they feel like they're missing out, and that starts to create social isolation. And there's so many sides to it all. I just think we need to. This will be spoken about in years to come about how all this started and the damage that it's done to society as a whole. So again, no rule book to follow. We're just doing the very best we can and hoping that we're not doing too much sustained damage to our children as we navigate it ourselves.
yeah. I think this will be like cigarettes in years to come. Like
Oh
cigarettes are
yeah.
fine. Doctors used
Yep.
to prescribe cigarettes,
Yep.
calm you down, have a pack of 20 Winnie Blues or whatever. And now, or now, they're hidden away, and there were all these court cases around it, and all this stuff came out, which they knew at the time anyway. but there was money to be made, right?
So
And
true.
I feel like it's known that this is a problem, or a lot of people know, but a lot of people, they either ignore it, or it's easier just to give the phone or the device or the whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe they know somewhere subconsciously, but they're just not taking any attention to that because they got their own problems. They're trying to
Of
manage the
course.
family and work, and maybe a boss that they hate or whatever it might be as well. So they don't want the hassle of the kid yelling and being upset. So here you go, watch YouTube. It's easier for
Yeah, it's
me.
so true. And
You see a lot.
no judgment from me. I've done it. I've made my mistakes. I've made decisions, and the way I approach it. And we all do the best we can in the moment, in the time. But I agree. I think it will be something that will be discussed at length. There'll be theses and doctorates and all that stuff done on when social media was freely available to everyone, and what
Yeah,
was the
what were the
impact.
yeah,
But
but China don't do that, do they? They have it locked off for their kids. They
yeah,
turn it off at night. It's not loud. I
all the
think
stories you
they,
hear about all of the tech giants and all their kids that don't have social media
yeah,
and don't have access to Facebook, you're like,
don't care.
there's something a bit weird about that. If they're not doing it, then what's going on? But we make the most of what we can.
Yeah, it's very hard. We've literally got that now. You say it's going to happen. It's happening now anyway. Like our son,
Yeah,
he's been coming home from school the last couple of weeks ago. What are you doing, mate? He's "Oh, I'm just bored. Everybody's talking about Roblox and I don't know what they're talking about. So I go to the library. And I'm like,
yeah,
yeah, that's not going to let you have it
it's
though.
hard.
Like
Yeah,
it's so challenging. He just knows that the answer is no at the moment. But really interestingly, we had some friends around to stay, over for dinner a couple of weeks ago. And it was actually the son of a friend of ours from backpacking years ago. So 19 years ago, basically 20 years ago,
yep.
some backpacker friends of ours got together, they got pregnant, and then they went back to the UK because they didn't have family here, didn't have stable jobs. And then her son just came out as a backpacker himself, and
Oh
then
wow.
with three of his mates, and they came over to us for dinner. And so there was like 4 18-year-old lads in our house. We just gave a barbecue and a shower because they'd been backpacking for a week in advance. We're like,
As you
here you
do.
go. We said, we promised your mum, we'll feed you and we'll send you off clean. So we did that. But we were talking to them, and they're really nice lads. And one of them, he's 18 now, and he said that he was not allowed devices by his parents until he was about 13, I think. And the answer was just no. He said there
Yep.
was no discussion, it was just no. And he said, and I'm so grateful to my parents now that they didn't give it to me. He goes, I realize now what a good thing it was for me not to have had it at that time. He goes, and I asked him, I said, but how did you manage at the time? What did you think with your parents? He goes, oh, I hated it. I'm
Yeah.
so pissed off at them. I was like, oh, how can I instill your now gratitude to your parents into my son so that he realizes that this is for the greater good, sort of thing. So it's such a challenge. It's absolutely one of the most problematic things that I think we go through personally at our house because everybody's got it. They've got smartwatches. And one of his
Yeah.
mates, he had a friend over at the weekend. His friend's the same age as him. He's already got a mobile phone. You're like, yeah, you don't need a mobile phone when you're 8 years old, really. But
Definitely do not. Definitely do not.
no, so it's
But
super, super
as
hard.
you said, it's no judgment. It's just I've got my opinions on it. And I think we're still very strict. My 17-year-old daughter doesn't take her phone before she goes to bed at night. She hands her phone in,
Yeah,
and we trust her. But at the same time, she'd never admit it, but I think she would be grateful the fact that she can just have uninterrupted sleep and not have to worry about the phone binging off because someone else is sending messages. And we'll do that in our house until she decides to move on or whatever. We like to try and put some boundaries in place, and I think they're important. But yeah, to each their own. That's for sure.
yeah, no, 100%. There'll be a point in time when our son will get an iPad.
Yeah,
It'll absolutely happen. But 100%, he will never have that iPad in his room on his
yeah,
own. And
yeah.
that's something I'd never really thought about before. But a friend of ours there, he's about 15, 16-year-old son, he got catfished and he
Oh
got
god.
catfished to get a naked picture of him. And as soon
Oh
as he sent the picture through, they came back and said, "Oh, you've got to pay us money, otherwise we're going to send this to all your friends on Instagram, this, that, and the other." And very fortunately, he went and told his dad and said, "Oh God, Dad, this is what I've done." His dad took care of the situation, so it's very good that he had that trusted advisor relationship
yeah,
with his dad, which
so
is
true.
amazing. So he went, told him, they took care of it, they reported it to the cybercrimes police, whatever. And they said to him, the dad, he said, "Look, so look, one thing we would say to you is that we always advise people is to parents, never let your children have a device in their room on their own. You be around them
Yep.
because if something happens, you will be able to see, maybe it's imperceptible, but some kind of change in their
Yeah.
appearance, their stance, their mood, and you know that something's wrong. And then you can either intervene or you can do something, but don't let that happen in the bedroom where you can't even see what's going on. You might not see
Yeah,
the
so
screen, but you
true.
will see their face, their expression, and you know that something's happening. And
Yeah, it's great advice.
yeah, I remember my friend telling me this because he told me when it had happened, like literally the next day, and I just remember that. God, that's such a good
Horrifying, isn't it?
point of advice.
Absolutely horrifying.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm sorry, mate, I interrupted you on your
Oh no,
list there. I think you
the
had a
last one was really simple. It's about this is a simple one which we all come across, and that is it's not about you. And this is the same. It's not about me. It's about my children. It's not about me. I don't have to stand up and beat my chest about what I've done and what I've experienced to my clients or my children. It's about how I can make them better, how I can give them guidance to help them achieve what they want to achieve. And of course, that's what it is about our children. We want them to pursue the sports they want to play, pursue the careers they want to pursue, and
Mm.
give them the opportunities they may not have been able to get themselves to pursue those hopes and dreams and aspirations. And it's the same for our clients. As soon as you are very clear that it's not about me, I don't need praise, I don't need thanks, I don't need, well, thank you is nice every now and then, but I don't need big giant testimonials, and you don't need to be thanking me for the success of your business. You don't need that. My thanks largely comes from seeing them achieve their potential. And we know that with you see it and you've experienced it and you've seen your kids excel in a sport or in music or something like that, and you realize that you've helped them achieve the outcome that they've received. That's very heartwarming, and it's the same in business. I celebrate my clients' wins sometimes more than they do. It's a great feeling, and I've learned to do that more and more based on the success and the way my kids light up when they have success. And to be fair, when they fail miserably and fall hard, to be there and have no judgment and tell them it's okay and you can dust yourself off and get going again. It's the same lesson again in business, to be able to say to a client who's had something go very wrong or hasn't worked out the way they thought, to have that confidence to say, hey, dust yourself off, learn from it. What are the lessons? And now how do we get back on the horse and go again? Has just been yeah, something that my clients have really resonated with. I'm not expecting perfection, and I'm here to support them both through the good times and the bad.
Yeah, I think that's it. You're doing the best you can.
Yeah.
And a lot of those things that you talked about, like being honest, truthful, and just expecting to work hard and be honest, put things in place. Remember that today is not the end of the story. You're going to still move on from here. And the bad times are what really grow your experience at the end of the
Yeah.
day. And if you can take your bad times and experience and help others to just navigate those things a little bit, I think is you can assist in some ways. I think that's a really good thing.
Yeah.
But they're still never gonna have the perfect story either. They
Oh no, no such thing.
no, I was trying to explain again, trying to explain this to my son because he got the right hump the other day with me because I was trying to help him to make a paper aeroplane. We signed him up
Yep.
for this thing called Crunch Labs, which you may not be aware of. Your kids might be a bit past it, I don't know.
Yep.
But Crunch Labs is a guy. It's one YouTube channel that we do let him watch now and again. If he's going to watch something on YouTube, he can watch Crunch Labs because it's all
Mhm.
engineering and making stuff. And
Nice.
then he sells these boxes, so you get a box every month with a thing to make in it.
Yep.
So we told our son to, he really wanted it. We said, if you're good and do these certain things, make his bed, make his lunch for school every day, there's a list of stuff. So you do all that, we'll get you the Crunch Labs box. We signed him up for that. And then as soon as you sign up, you get a letter that you can print off, which is like, welcome to Crunch Labs. Here's your first engineering task anyway, while you're waiting for your box. And the letter has got lines on it to fold it into this
Nice.
amazing paper aeroplane.
Yep.
So he was making the paper aeroplane, but he was missing the lines a bit. And I was trying to just guide him a little bit. I was not trying to do it for him. I was like, mate, if you just get that one over there, because you've got to make it symmetrical, otherwise it's going to be all wonky and he just got the right up about it. And I was just trying to explain to go, mate, I'm not trying to tell you what to do. I said, I'm just trying to help guide you from experience. I can see that if you follow the instructions, which is what's going to happen with all these boxes that you're going to get, you'll get a better product at the end. So I don't want you to not do it yourself. I want you to do it yourself, but you also need to help listen to guidance from other people that can see the things that you can't. And at the moment, you're missing a few points here.
Yeah.
That ended up being a great conversation, though, by the way, because he just didn't. It was late at night after school. Probably wasn't the best time to have it. We actually ended up doing what you were saying, which is actually a good point. Is we parked it, said, mate, we're going to have this tomorrow. You're going to bed now because this isn't
Yep.
happening, and now we're going to have this conversation tomorrow. We revisited it the next day, actually. which
Yeah, so good.
was a proud moment for me as a dad to go, all right, I think we need to take this away and de-escalate. We'll come back again. It's like
Well done.
maybe I'm learning as a dad here too.
So true. Well done.
Thank you, mate. So we'll round this off just a little bit. I always like to ask people as well. We talk about people and communication and all that. The high level community is an amazing thing. We're here now because we're part of the high level community. I've met you
Yeah,
through the high level community. You're part of the overall high level community and also the one that we have in Australia as well, and part of
yeah,
our weekly catch ups that we have, which is amazing. We've met some awesome people, and I love our
absolutely.
group in Australia. How important is the high level community to you, and how has that kind of helped you shape and grow your business as well?
I think, yeah, the high level Australian community, definitely. I think all communities, one of the hardest things as a father, particularly, and I'll say that not to be sexist, but as a father, is that it was traditionally not the done thing to get together with other dads and talk about what you're doing with your kids. You talk about
Mm,
sport and you do all the kind of macho stuff that we thought we had to talk about. So the ability to talk and share experiences with other entrepreneurs, I think, is invaluable. It's amazing. It makes you feel like you're not alone. And the more of these communities, I'm a part of some amazing communities, and the more you sit down and talk with them, not only do you realize that you're not alone, the fact they're not in your office or you're not talking to them every day doesn't mean there's not other people going through the exact same thing you are, is really valuable. And the Australian GHL one's great because they're Aussies, they're using GHL, so they're like us, they're like me. So because of that, we've got relatable topics. We've been through different things. We know that it's different to what you might get in the international GHL communities because they're different countries experiencing things slightly different. And then comes the whole idea of I run a lot of live workshops with people, and the first thing they all say is that it seems very lonely when you're an entrepreneur by yourself, and when things aren't going well, there's a bit of shame attached to that, there's a bit of fear
mm.
attached to that. And the last thing you want to do is just go and talk to someone else's dad or to talk to another person about that because you don't know if they'll understand what you're going through. I think that's what I've found most in the communities I'm a part of, including the GHL Australian communities, the ability to just share something that's happening and someone else even just say, "Oh yeah, I'm going through that as well," or "I've been through that and here's what I did," is an enormous help. And now I personally, I get a lot of value out of being on those calls and rabbiting on and going on to rants about how I've overcome that in the past so that other people don't have to go through the same thing that I've done. I don't Pain is going to happen, but suffering is optional. There's a saying, something around that. And the idea of we're going to go through pain, we're going to go through hard times in our lives, but to have someone that says, I've been through exactly that, do A, B, C, and D, and shortcut all that suffering, I think that's amazing. And to be able to contribute that in a really well curated community is a real privilege.
Yeah, it's so nice. Like I find so much value in the community relationships we have, and it's so nice as well. And then we get together at some point,
Yeah.
whether it's Dallas or something here in Australia. We had a thing in Brisbane where we had a bunch of people. We all caught up for
Yep.
a Christmas lunch. We have a monthly catch up on the Sunshine Coast with a few people up here, and it's so nice. It's like you catch up with all these people that you can relate to,
Yeah.
because it's a lonely journey being an
Yeah.
entrepreneur. And I spend a lot of time at my desk here. I'm a very much I work in my box person, right? There's these people that have got laptop lifestyle and they're at the beach or at a cafe and this and the other. I hate that, right? I can't stand doing that. My laptop sits on my desk and it doesn't move from there. I work here and then I go away. And when I'm done, I can't stand the idea of sitting in a cafe somewhere on a beach looking at the ocean while I'm working. That would drive me insane because I'm like, I want to be in the ocean. I don't want to be sitting here looking at it. I want to get my work done and then I'm going to go to the ocean. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it can be a very lonely thing when you don't know the answers. When you are the entrepreneur, the business owner, if you're starting out on your own, you've got no one to ask. If you've got a team, you still generally got no one to ask because they're all looking to you for the answers
Absolutely.
anyway.
You can't ask them a question because you're supposed to know everything. You're the boss.
Exactly. You're the
Yeah,
boss,
it's
right?
so
You've got to know
true.
everything. And that's why I love this as well, having these conversations with other SaaS dads and just talking through what's that journey like and managing kids and family. Because we're all in the same place at the end of the day.
Yeah.
We all are. And there's people that look around and they see the SaaSpreneurs and the gold award winners and the platinum award winners, or the people who've got their podcasts, their YouTube channels that look polished and sorted. Nobody had that to start with,
No,
right? And they've probably still got an absolute mess going on somewhere behind in
of
their life.
course. In some part.
That's in some part. There's some part of the wheel that's not completely round, right? Nobody's got a perfectly round wheel. You just don't.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to have these conversations and make people aware because then they can just, oh, all right. just having a shitty day, or I just don't know how to do this yet. I'll figure it out. I'll ask someone, have a conversation,
So true.
talk to someone in the high level community, put a post in there, find your local community and find people that live in your area and organize and go and have a coffee catch up. Go and do
Yeah.
that. I think if people can do that, they'll really get themselves out.
It's so true. The in-person thing is just massive at the moment. I think it was COVID was the catalyst, but now that we've come out of that kind of era, the idea of I just was down in Adelaide last week and ran some workshops with some new go high levelers, if you like, that were just getting onto the platform. Just the ability to sit down and interact with them and go for dinner afterwards. It's that human connection that I think has been missing for a while. And I'm really leaning into the event space at the moment. I'm just finding it's so much more enjoyable. The connections are so much deeper. The conversations are so much better when people are focused and they're in front of you and that they've got that presence.
Yeah. Oh,
They're there and present is fantastic.
yeah. When you've already had a connection on social media, like you know someone, you follow their little life and see your pictures at concerts, traveling and doing this, that, and the other, you can see that. And then you catch up and you know a bit about them. It's
Yeah.
really nice. I actually had a, let's call it a discussion anyway on social media today with Bryce Decora from Closebot.
Yeah,
He'd
dude.
put
Yep.
something up and he was saying about how he used the less time he spent on social media, the faster Closebot developed. But the less time he spent on social media, then the further it fell behind in sort of terms of the marketing because people want him on
Right.
there. And he was saying in his comments, he said he struggles with the social media part of it sometimes because it takes a lot of time.
Yep.
And someone wrote in there and said, oh, just get AI. You can automate all that. It can read all your last posts and automate it, and then it will reply to people and da 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 da. And I replied to that person, I said, that is just ridiculous. I was
Yep.
like, you can't do that. I said, technically, AI might be able to do it. I don't know if it's there yet anyway, but it might be able to. It might be able to use your inflection, your tone, reply to people. But how useless is that? And I said exactly this thing. I said, imagine if I was responding to you and I'd be commenting and liking and saying well done on your latest event or your birthday or whatever it might be. And then I meet you in person and I know absolutely nothing about you.
Yeah.
It's completely fake and false. So use social media the way that it should be. Be social. And then if you can take that offline and then you meet people, you can actually do really well. I've got amazing networks through being social on social media. I can
Yeah.
go to lots of countries now, meet people, catch up with them, see them. I've got extended friends that they've maybe been in Australia or other countries where I've been, and now I keep in touch with them, and then we catch up when I go to these countries and stuff. So yeah, using AI for all that is a terrible approach, I think. Use
Yeah.
social
I
media to
100%
be
agree.
social.
100% agree. I think too, it's about, and I know we're winding up, but this idea of people who know and trust you, you'll repel the people that don't like you and you'll attract the people that do. And I think that's a good thing. It's
Mm,
the unknowns that become the frustrating bits. You don't know whether they like you or they do, they assimilate with you or they don't. And this idea of it's why my social content is typically I've just taken my family to another concert or we're traveling overseas or we're doing this or we're doing that. And the reason I do that is because people that like travel or like music or traveling overseas tend to have an affiliation with me. They feel like they could talk to me, they could open up to me, and I might be their person. And if you're not sharing any of that, or if you're using AI to share it, even if you do happen to make a connection with them, when they see the real you, it's very unlikely to be the real thing. And I think that would be even more confronting when they realize that, hang on, I've been catfished in a way
yeah.
to someone that actually does isn't real. And that's the last thing you want. That's a relationship killer.
Yeah, I think 10 genuine connections is way better than 1,000 fake ones,
Oh,
right?
so true. Great advice.
Yeah. Mate, well, we are wrapping up. What I would love to do though, you've talked about the journey. You don't regret anything as you've gone through life and the challenges, the things that you've gone through, right? Wouldn't change it for the world. But if you could just go back and give, let's say, 19-year-old Leon when he started his military career, it was 19, I think you said when you started in the
Yep.
military. If you could give 19-year-old Leon a little bit of advice on how his future is going to go and anywhere that you could guide him, what would you go back and say to 19-year-old Leon?
I'd redefine failure. The idea of trying something and it not working isn't the end of the road, it's just a lesson. And I think the idea is if you embrace the idea of failure and the lessons that come with it, as I said earlier, you can't buy those lessons. It's hard to buy those lessons, particularly when you experience it. Again, cliched, but fail fast, fail forward. Just go and do
Mm,
it. You don't regret the things that you don't do. Sorry, you don't regret the things you do. You only regret the things you don't do
yeah.
because you can recover from the ones you do, but you'll always be wondering what happened if you didn't. And my final one would be think bigger. For many years of my life, the idea of being a millionaire was something that celebrities and drug dealers were, and that was it. And then when you start hanging around circles where people are making $1 million, you think, hang on, that you're like me, I can do this. And then you start hanging around in circles where people are making $1 million a month or $1 million a week in revenue. And you're like, hang on, they're further in this journey, but this runway is in front of me. And as soon as you recognize that, the idea of making $1 million in a year, just it's not a roadblock in your mind anymore. You're thinking of the bigger thing, and before you know it, you're achieving goals that you previously thought were completely achievable. So yeah, think bigger. There's always bigger. Get around the right people.
Awesome. Thank you, man. If anyone wants to reach out and connect with you, where will they find you? As the best place on the socials, website?
Yeah, Instagram. Leon Babanachek is the easy one. I've just started Instagram the last 3 or 4 months. So please jump on and subscribe if you want to hear about all these cool things we're doing, whether it be with GHL or just business in general. Or if you wanted to chat about anything, you can go to connectwithleon.com, and yeah, you can book a 15-minute chat or just give some details and send me an email from there.
Awesome, man. All right. If anyone wants to connect, well, details will be below here somewhere. Go follow Leon on the socials, mate. I look forward to seeing you at the next event. Hopefully, we're doing one in Australia, I think.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
So that should be coming up hopefully soon. And
Yeah,
I'll see you in Dallas anyway in October. I'm sure you'll be
sure
there
will.
again, mate. All right.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thanks, buddy.
Thanks,
Thanks for
Gary.
coming in.
Cheers, mate.